So guys, let's look at the second part of the data response, second part of our paper, which is basically data response. We did the essays yesterday. So it's about Egypt's economic difficulties. So let's just read this. They gave us consumer price index, means this is telling us inflation. Base year was 2000. Then they gave us current account balance, which is in deficit, if you could see this. And then the data wasn't available. And then you have unemployment rate, which is going down, it seems like, from the data response. So Egypt's Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics reported that Egypt's annual inflation has surged to 32% in April 2017. So 32% in April 2017 compared to 10% in
There, the screen is paused, I think, because we cannot see the question. Now we can, yeah.
Can you see the screen?
Now we can, yes.
What happened before?
It got stuck on like the home page, the first page.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. So this tells us that Egypt's Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics reported that Egypt's annual inflation rate surged 32.9% compared to 10.9%, right? Which means inflation is happening. And this is annual inflation. This is considerably higher than the expected rate that was estimated by IMF in table 1.1. Table 1.1 is giving us estimated in 2017. If you look at this, the numbers are not available for current account. The consumer price index is given, right? Inflation has been rising in Egypt since the decision of the central just a minute, let me just make it bigger. Decision of the Central Bank of Egypt in November 2016 to float Egypt's currency in a move that caused a 50% depreciation. So depreciation took place, which has caused inflation to also happen. So there is a link between exchange rate and depreciation. We'll talk about that later. This came as a part of the Egyptian government's reform program started in 2014 to reduce the budget deficit and acquire a US 12 billion loan from IMF to ease US dollar shortage that has restricted Egypt's business activity. Something is like this, by the way, happening in Pakistan as well. Pakistan has just repaid and it's finding its currency to lose its value. Rupee is being depreciating considerably in the last 3-4 weeks. A macroeconomic research group has said that the sharp rise in inflation could largely be attributed to the effects of the weaker Egyptian pound. So because of the exchange rate going down, it's causing inflation to happen. Inflation was also made worse by levying a new indirect tax called value-added tax. This is a sales tax, which can, of course, make the cost of production to go up, and cutting subsidies on energy in November 2016. On the same day as the CBE floated the Egyptian pound, it raised the interest rate by 3 percentage points. So at the same time, when they were sort of depreciating the currency or devaluing the currency, they also increased the interest rate. So interest rates were going up as well at the same time as the exchange rate is going down. Egypt's VAT replaced the previous sales tax, which Congress had created market distortion. So the tax isn't really doing well. It was expected to broaden the tax base in a country where the government struggles to collect income taxes, something which is kind of like Pakistan's situation. Because of a large informal economy and widespread tax avoidance, the VAT does not apply to basic goods and services to protect the poor. Okay, guys, let's look at this one. What happened to Egypt's current account balance between 2014 and 2016? Current account balance between 2014 and 2016, guys. Current account balance is becoming, it's a deficit, and the deficit is growing, right? So we can say in this case, guys, what is happening is that the deficit is increasing, right? And you need to first identify the fact that there is a deficit because the number is negative in current account balance, and secondly, the number is increasing. So that's what we can say, that the deficit is increasing or deficit is worsening can also be said in this case. Make sense? Are we good? Any questions about this before we move on, guys? The deficit is increasing from minus 2.356 US dollar 2.356 billion to dollar 18.656 billion. Okay. Second part, with reference to table 1.1, calculate the percentage rate of inflation in Egypt between 2016 and 2017 that was estimated by the IMF. So 16 and 17 that was estimated by the IMF. So how do I find that out? I find this out by finding rate of change here. So that is basically, if you have a calculator, 453 minus 371 over 371 times 100. Guys, what's the math for this? 453 minus 371 divided by 371 is 22%. Yeah, 22.1%. So that's equal to 22.1%. Right? So that's your answer. Guys, do you all agree with that? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Identify two canons of taxation satisfied by Egypt's new VAT or VAT. So guys, what are the canons of taxation? If you remember canons of taxation from notes, it's a good point to revise that the canons of taxation is basically 4 canons of taxation. There is certainty, there should not be any surprises about the taxes, the timing of the tax or the amount that needs to be paid shouldn't be coming as a surprise. It should be pretty certain and transparent, basically. Number 1. Number 2, there should be convenience in terms of how you pay the tax. This should not be causing people to find it very difficult to collect taxes. So, and the timing of it matters also. For example, you can't really take taxes at the end of the month. It's better to take it at the beginning of the month, right? So convenience is the second factor. The third factor is economy. They should be collected cheaply, not that much cost of collection should be there, because if the cost of collection is really high, then the government may not get too much of tax revenue in the end. And lastly, it should be equitable, which is fair, or equity, which is basically the idea that rich and the poor should be paying the different amount of the sort of taxes. So identify 2 canons of taxation satisfied. So what are the 2 taxes, guys? 2 canons that are satisfied. VAT doesn't have equity because it's an indirect tax, guys. So equity to nahi hogi. That's something which it's definitely because if you look at this, economy could be one. Yes, collection could be easy because of that. Convenience could be another factor. Yes, I would agree. But equity, no. Certainty could also be a factor that could be achieved here. So that's another factor that can be taken into account. Yeah. Yeah. So you can mention all 4 and say convenience and economy could be met by that. Or identify 2 canons. You can just talk about 2. It is not equitable because it's regressive. Yeah, indirect taxes are not equitable. That's true, Isha. Okay, C, guys, can you see C? Explain how the decline in the value of the Egyptian pound could cause demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. So if you look at, guys, how the question is asking us, how is basically exchange rate going down is causing demand pull and cost push. It's a 4-mark question. So I'm going to basically talk about how when the exchange rate goes down, exports become cheaper, imports become expensive. So when the exports become cheaper, imports become expensive, X minus M can go up, and that can make AD go up, right? If AD goes up, you will see a possible demand pull inflation in an economy as AD curve shifts to the right. So write your answer by giving this kind of an analysis. Don't just give it without providing this analysis of the AD curve shifting to the right and the reason why this happens. Similarly, if the exchange rate goes down, okay, because imports are becoming expensive, key inputs like oil becomes expensive, which means exactly Taha, cost of production will go up, AS will shift back, causing your cost push inflation to happen. Right? So you can talk about that also. And this can be seen through a shift of the supply curve backward. Are we good? Mustafa, what happened? Oh, you have a question? How certainty, certainty, basically the idea that, like when you're paying your taxes, right? Certain taxes, the timing and amount must be certain, like it shouldn't come as a surprise. So unless you raise the price suddenly and without much of notification, it will be, otherwise will be uncertain. Okay, that's 4 marks. Then D is saying, explain how the estimated changes in unemployment in table 1.1 might be expected to affect the current account balance of Egypt after 2016. So how is unemployment affecting the current account balance is the question that they're asking us. And it's a 6-mark question. So I'm spending quite a lot of time in that. So guys, the unemployment rate in this case, if you can, let's just quickly look at this, what is happening to the unemployment rate. And the question is saying after 2016, right? So just after 2016. So after 2016, the unemployment rate seems to be going down. Isn't that true? So first thing first is that unemployment rate is expected to fall from 2016 onwards. That's one thing, right? And so because unemployment rate will go down, so the question is asking us, affect the current account balance of Egypt. So, right, so it can affect it both ways. It can make it sort of go up or go down. So when the unemployment rate goes down, guys, what happens, do you think, to your incomes? The incomes will go up, and that would result in imports to sometimes go up, right? And if imports go up, and that could make your X minus M to go down, right? So unemployment rate, because when the incomes go up, we tend to buy more of foreign goods, right? And there is also another idea that, there could also be effect in terms of exports, right? What can be the effect on exports, guys? There could also be a possibility that exports will fall as producers may focus on rising domestic market which could also worsen the deficit. Okay, so this is the two things that can happen, right? But there's also another argument that we can make, that there could be an improvement in X minus M, because when the incomes are rising, it could actually be because of rising sort of productivity of the country. So productivity can go up, and that will make the country stronger in terms of exports to go up. So China is finding its incomes to go up primarily from growing exports, and that could actually also be something that could make X minus M to go up rather than down. Okay, so the country could actually have that kind of a thing going on for it as well. Okay, so you can give both the arguments here in that context, that it could worsen or increase depending from country to country. Make sense? Are we good? Any questions about this, guys? Are we good to move on? Okay, awesome. Discuss whether Egyptian government's fiscal and monetary policies in the article are likely to succeed in curing inflation problems. So I do really want you guys to prepare fiscal monetary policy in controlling inflation. And I feel that, by doing these papers, we are able to actually revise so much of the stuff, which I think is awesome, because otherwise you don't get these opportunities. So how does fiscal monetary policy is going to sort of control inflation? So let's talk about that. Okay, how do we control inflation through fiscal monetary policy? Guys, so what is fiscal policy? Fiscal policy that what I'm going to use here is fiscal and monetary policy. First of all, let me quickly write an important point. They are demand side policies, right? And they control basically your AD. So when the AD changes, you will see the price level to change, right? So when the AD, for example, goes down, the price level will go down. So basically what we need to do is what we call contractionary fiscal and monetary policy, right? So for example, for fiscal policy, I would make my taxes to go up or government expenditure to go down. And for monetary policy, I will make my interest rate to go up. Both these policies basically are going to help us control AD, and that will make the price level to go down. Are we good? So what are the policies that they have actually adopted in the article, right? So let's go back quickly to what the policies they've adopted. So first of all, guys, the government basically did increase the interest rate by 3 percentage points. So they make that's the example of the monetary policy. Also, what they did was this, that they increased taxes, which was something they mentioned. They had increased taxes, right? What else did they do? Let me just quickly read the article. Yeah, this one. So they've been cutting subsidies on energy, putting a new indirect tax. All of these are what we call government monetary policy, right? So the fiscal monetary policy are basically the government is trying to reduce their spending. They are putting indirect taxes, right? They are also cutting subsidies and increasing interest rates. At the same time, they are making the exchange rate go down, So exchange rate is going down. So these are the policies that the government is doing, right? And these policies, some of them can control inflation because we talked about how this is going to make the AD fall and therefore the price level to go down. So you can talk about how the government, by raising taxes and by reducing government expenditure of, like cutting down on subsidies, can make the AD fall and therefore price level to fall. Similarly, when you increase interest rates, this will also result in us to have a control of inflation, right? So this is the first part of the discussion that we talk about. Now, what are the counter arguments why it would not work? Let's talk about that, guys. Why it would not work? Okay, anyone? Why will it not work? So there are many reasons, guys. One is basically, what if the inflation is cost push? Very good. Somebody said that if it's cost push inflation and you are doing demand policy, so that's one reason why it could be counterproductive or detrimental, as Suzanne is pointing out. Very good. Number two is, of course, if you're trying to make the AD go down and if you have an inelastic demand, that's also another good argument. Inelastic demand, you might not see inflation to be curtailed that much. That's a good point also. Any other point that we can think of? So, I think somebody said that in a fixed exchange rate regime, using monetary policy maybe not a good way to go forward. But these are two good arguments that you can raise here, guys. Sumit pointed out that also that maybe also fiscal and monetary policy, if they are of contraction in nature, it may affect the poor more than the rich. And especially when you're doing taxes that are also indirect, which is regressive nature, could be harmful for the country, right? So you can talk about the unpopularity of contractionary policies on the demand side in general could be a problem for the government. Can be a good evaluation point that can be written here. Make sense? So they are unpopular as policies. We can talk about that also as well. Okay, guys, does that make sense? So that's the paper. I think we've done a very good, thorough job of doing this paper. So I'm pretty happy about this. I'm going to end my class on this note, guys. Okay, short and sweet, and then we'll meet tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have a class at normal time at 4 o'clock. Okay, have a good one, guys. This class is recorded just in case somebody has missed it. I think they're uploading it. Do check the YouTube as well, and I'll ask them to upload it on the folder as well. Okay, so don't worry about that. Thank you. Bye bye, guys.